And we're back. Welcome to the What You Drinking segment, and welcome to our guests, Victor and Andrew from Lion Bines Hop Farm.
How's it
Thanks for
going,
having
guys?
us. Thanks for
Hold
having us,
on.
guys.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, we're so excited, man. I think when you guys reached out to us to be on, I was like, dude, this is exactly what we need. We need to learn more. We're trying to learn more about beer and educate the people. And now we finally got some experts to do just that for us. So thank you guys for being here.
Yeah, thank you. This is
So,
awesome.
really quick, just before we get started with our beers of the week, but do you guys want to go ahead and just introduce yourselves?
Yeah,
Yeah.
so we have a hop farm in central Pennsylvania. It's in Mechanicsburg, which is close to Harrisburg and Hershey. We service our local craft beer scene, and we also, service anywhere in the Northeast that is interested in Northeastern hops. Andrew and I, as well as a couple other people, started the farm in 2018, and we're building this thing as we go.
Could you maybe tell us your name and also tell us what you do for Lion Bines?
So I'm Victor, and I run our sales and marketing. So I run our Instagram, our website, and I do a lot of the outreach to breweries, as well as fulfilling orders with them.
Okay.
And I'm Andrew. I'm our farmer, so I spend all of my extra time on the farm. I'm the one who grows the plants, processes them, and Victor likes to come to town and help out sometimes for some of the fun chores. But yeah,
Oh,
he
man,
plays a huge role. He really does.
that's awesome. How long have you guys known each other?
Since
We're
first
we're
grade,
on
I think.
20 years. Yeah,
Nice.
yeah.
Yeah.
We started first grade together.
Wow.
Yeah, we're probably 20 plus years, really.
Yeah, way back.
Man, that's
That's
awesome.
cool.
That's awesome. So have you guys always kind of had this kind of passion for farming or for beer, or what kind of what I guess I'm jumping right in. What kind of brought this all about, I guess?
I think it's funny because it's definitely the beer side of it. It wasn't like, you know what, I love to farm. I grew up loving farming. Neither of us, I'd never really, I did yard work. That's about it. Uh, but in our area, we grew up drinking trogs, and there's um, so many different things that so many different breweries that we drank from. So it was like you have to love craft beer where we're from. And at one point, Andrew actually gave me a call. I'm a CPA, and he said, "Hey, I'm thinking of starting a hop farm with some friends. I have this plot of land I'd like to grow it on, and I need some advice on this business plan." And I read the business plan, and I was like, "All right, well, I want in on this," and we kind of went from there.
That's awesome.
Nice.
The rest is history.
And this
Yep.
is where we are today.
Yep.
Well, we do have a couple beers that we're going to be talking about today before we really dive into the life that you guys have at Lion Bines Hop Farm. So, AJ, do you want to go ahead and tell us a little bit about what happened on Instagram and get us into this first I guess
Yes.
beer?
Yeah, absolutely. So every week, give a shout out there to the voters. Thank you guys on Instagram for voting for the polls this week. For mine, I had two different beers up. Highwire Brewing out of Asheville. It's called Highwire Loves Asheville, and it was up against an Aleworks Eagle air guitar. So I got the screenshot here. Let's see if I can get that to focus in. There we go. And as you can see, it
Nice.
was a landslide victory, 78 to 22%. So I thought I knew what I was drinking this week, but then I got a special message, a special early surprise. It is my birthday's actually next week, so I consider this an early birthday gift. Our
Nice.
good friends at Farmhouse Brewing here in Virginia Beach. I just happened to be wearing this Farmhouse Brewing T-shirt today. This is definitely not. It's a giant coincidence. We got a little bit of an early access to a beer that's releasing tomorrow. It's called the Ric Flair's Strawberry Ice Goza. So my kids and my wife are sleeping right now, so I'm not gonna do the Ric Flair woo, but because I might get in trouble for that. But I'm so excited. I could not be more excited about this beer. They were supposed to release this about 3 weeks ago, and then they said some technical difficulties came about. Not exactly sure what that was, but they had to push back the release. So I'm gonna go ahead and crack this bad boy open. I'm honestly excited to see what this looks like based on the label here and the description. And I'm honestly a little bit disappointed that I couldn't just ship one of these to you, Reese, like not even overnight, just like within a couple of hours, since you are the Goza man. I'm definitely a noob when it comes to the Gozas, but let's see what we got here.
I trust you. Looks nice. It's got a pinkish hue to it.
Yeah, that's actually the color in our official Ginger in the Beard beer glass here. That's actually the color I was kind of expecting. It's kind of like a pale pinkish. Strong strawberry flavor there. I'm not sure where the ice comes from in the name. I'm curious about that, but very large head on this for sure. So a little bit of facts about this. This is a fruited sour ale. It's brewed with strawberry puree. It's actually really low ABV, only 3.5%. I was actually kind of shocked when I saw that because most of the beers coming out of Farmhouse these days are pretty high in content. My favorite IPA they produced so far is the Mosaic, which is 11%. So it's a hefty boy. But this is actually brewed in collaboration with Aloha Snacks, which is a local restaurant that serves like a myriad of different foods with a lot of Asian-inspired dishes and sushi and ramen and stuff like that. So I was really excited because I'm a big fan of theirs as well. Nice. I'm going to go ahead and give this a try. That's delicious. Very creamy mouthfeel, I would say. The flavor is very strong strawberry, which I'm very happy about. Get very disappointed when I have a beer that's supposed to taste like a fruit and you can barely taste it. So this one is very satisfying. It's like I said, brewed with the strawberry puree. I couldn't find a ton of information about this out there just yet since it's so new. But just depending on, it seems like I did some research for fruited sours, and depending on when the fruit's added in the brewing process, it can do different things with the flavor profile. And just based on what I'm tasting and based on what I've researched, it seems like that's added pretty late in the process, like in the aging process, which is when the fruit flavor really comes out strong. So that's really, really delicious. I recommend you guys check that out for sure. I'm even seeing some bits of fruit in the glass right now. I'm sure you can't see it on the camera, but it's just kind of floating around in there. So, this is this was their Aloha to Summer series. So basically waving goodbye to summer with this last fruity release. So definitely check that out if you're local to Hampton Roads. And thank you, Farmhouse, for the early access there.
Yeah, that's really cool. Ending the summer with a big old woo.
Yes,
I
nature
can't do
boy.
it loud either. I can't do it loud either. But
limousine riding, jet flying, Rolex wearing.
Oh man.
Back
Take
in
it
the
there.
day.
Yeah.
Yes.
All right, so I had two beers as well. I had the National Cherry Blossom Festive Ale, Farmhouse Cherry Ale. It's a cherry saison. I don't know if I'm saying that right. I think I'm saying it right. Saison.
Close enough.
Yeah, close enough. And that was up against the Collective Arts Blood Orange and Hibiscus Sour. And apparently the Farmhouse Cherry Ale won. So we're going to go ahead and get into this. This is from Old Ox Brewery, which is actually really not that far from my house. It actually won 67% to 33%. So I actually am surprised about that because usually the more artistic cans win. And with a name like Collective Arts, it had a lot of, it had a very cool looking can, but I guess Festival won out anyway. So it's a farmhouse ale, saison style, 5.5% ABV, 7 IBUs. It's the official beer of the National Cherry Blossom Festival. So Old Ox and the National Cherry Blossom Festival chose a rustic farmhouse ale as a representation of the season. And it was originally, just so you guys know, it was originally brewed as a thirst quenching beverage for farmers planting crops, which I found pretty interesting that you would
Interesting.
be, drinking beer to,
Drinking on the job.
yeah, Um, it's also a sign that spring has arrived. So I guess kind of the opposite of what you were drinking, which is the end
Yeah.
of summer. Now
Right.
it's maybe I should have drank this a couple months ago.
Maybe.
Whoops. So let's go ahead. I'm going to go ahead and pour this guy out and see what we're working with here. And same ginger in the beard glass. Oh, don't spill on my keyboard.
Oh, we've made that mistake once already.
Yeah, I know. I don't want to do that again.
Look at that. Another pink beer.
Another
Two
pink
pink beers
beer.
on the show today. All right.
Definitely not as hazy.
Just represent.
Not as hazy as what you got over there. Still a little hazy though. Definitely pink hue. Nice head on it. Pretty uniform bubbles. Let's go ahead and give it a try. Ah, that's pretty good. I guess I am getting a little bit of the cherry. It's a little bit sweet, not as sweet as I would have expected. Just a tiny bit of bitterness. Very easy to drink, I would say, like refreshing, certainly, which is I think what they were. I mean, that's what they were going for, right? And I could
Yeah.
see why they would choose this because I feel like I could drink this on a hot day. I could probably drink a couple of these on a hot day, and I could definitely get some work done out in the yard, no problem. Um, Very bubbly, silky kind of feel to it, I guess you could say. Um, but overall, pretty happy with it. So
Very nice.
yeah, man, I would recommend this.
Sounds tasty. I don't think I've ever had a cherry beer. The more I think about it, I think that's one flavor I'm missing in my repertoire.
Have you had Mad Elf Trogs?
Yeah, I
I
have.
have not.
That's a cherry beer.
I
haven't
bet.
had that.
I bet you've had cherry in the. I bet there's been cherry in like some of the beers that you've drank, and you probably didn't realize it.
You know, I,
'Cause
just I realized the other day, I was like, I haven't been logging. I have Untapped, and I used to use it, but I haven't logged like any beer since doing this podcast, and we've had a bunch since then. So
At least
don't
like
know.
50, right?
Yeah.
Probably at least 50 beers since we've been doing this.
Yep.
So yeah, that was the festive ale. I liked it. I recommend it definitely, guys. Try Old Ox. They come up with some new and exciting things quite often. So
Very
moving
cool.
on, Victor, did you have a beer you wanted to share with us?
Yes, I'm drinking the Long Island City Company Man. It's a Pilsner. A friend of mine gave it to me, so I really didn't know too much about it. But it's a German style Pilsner with brewed solely with Hellertau hops. So it's an old world hop. Typically, those aren't as common. They're used in your Pilsners and your lagers. You don't get that real like punch in the face. You don't get the citrus that you may think or the pine. You just kind of get like a little bitterness with it. So it's nice. It's refreshing, very malt forward, and it's definitely like a lawnmower beer.
I love that description. That's
The
awesome.
ABV is 5.5%. So you could drink a couple of these, and be good to go.
See, that's why I need a riding mower. I have the smallest yard in the world. Not really, but I have a pretty small yard. But just to hold a beer on my lawnmower, that's what I need a riding mower for.
You
It's
can put
amazing.
like a cup holder in your push mower.
Yeah,
There you go.
that's when
Need that.
you've reached ultimate dad status. Is when you like have a Corona with your lawnmower, or like my dad was a Coors Light man for a while.
Nice.
I have a koozie in my shower that you
Oh
can
my God.
stick on when you're showering using your soap or whatever, and then you can take it off and stick it back on.
Yeah,
Breakfast of Champions.
Yeah.
Hey, so you said that it was a citrusy, or it was you said it was citrusy or not
No,
citrusy?
so it's the old world hops like a Hellertau doesn't have the citrus, doesn't have what maybe you would associate with hops. Being an American drinker, drinking American craft beer is very hop forward, punch
Right.
you in the face. This is
Piney.
like just really light bitterness. They highlight the malt a little more, and it's very subtle.
So I'm learning a little bit more about hops, but it's great to have you guys on. So is that because that they harvested it earlier on in the season, you think, or is it literally just because that's the type of strain that it was genetically modified to be?
It's all the strain. If you harvest too early, you're not going to get the character you need out of the hop, because as the hop matures, the lupulin powder is released, and that's what gets you all your flavoring and all of that. So without that, you really don't have much. This is just, this is a very old hop, and it was bred to have these flavors. Just how, other hops will be bred to, like Citra. It's got a lot of citrus character because they were crossbred. Different hop varieties that had this character was bred with another one that has another character, and through a ton of trial and error, you get to these great hops.
Got it. Okay. Okay. Yeah, I didn't realize that. That's awesome.
Yeah, it's so interesting. I'm excited to kind of transition and push us into more to learn more about you guys and the farm. So I've definitely got a lot of questions about hops as well. But do you guys want to give us? I'm kind of interested in some more background on the farm. So you guys, how long's the farm been around, and how did you guys get into this?
So we started up. The idea started in 2017, and it wasn't until 2018 that any plants were in the ground. And it kind of started. Andrew had an idea, talking with a friend, and I'm a CPA, and so he asked me to review his business plan, and I said, you can't afford my billing rate, jokingly, so you're going to have to, let me in as a partner in the company. And then, we started working on things, and before you know it, everything kind of took off, and we, built a building to process our hops. We put 100 and however many poles in the ground, and hundreds of plants, and it was, kind of a whirlwind.
Wow.
Yeah, that's crazy. So what's the name Lion Vines stand? What is it? What's that represent?
Well, Andrew's last name is Lyons, and he's the farmer. This was his idea, so I wanted to pay homage to him because this is his baby. But I didn't want to call it like Lyons Family Brewing or Family Hop Farm, because I think it's a little more generic. And hops grow on vines.
Okay.
It's not a vine, which a lot of people say, wait, do you mean vine? But they do look like vines. They're similar to vines, but they're
Mine
vines.
was
So
B.
yeah, with a B. So we went with lion vines. If you look at our logo, it's a hop, and it looks a bit like the form of a lion if you're looking closely.
Oh, yeah.
It's very cool.
So that's where the name came from.
That's awesome. Yeah, so I mean, as far as I know about hops, like just getting into hops in general, I think what I learned a long time ago about hops is where they came about was like preserving the beer as it was transported long distances. Is that accurate?
Yeah, that it originally came from beer that was being transported from India, and in order to preserve the beer while it was taking that journey across the ocean, hops are a natural preservative. So that's where it originated. So India Pale Ale, that's where that term comes from.
Yeah, that's like exactly what I thought. That the hoppier the beer, the longer the distance it had to travel, or something along those lines.
Pretty much, yeah.
Um, but we've just started to, or especially the more IPAs that. Number one, I used to hate IPAs. I used to think they were disgusting. But the longer I started drinking them, that's like what I prefer the most now. And every time we review an IPA on the show, of course today we don't have an IPA, but I look at the hops that they are brewed with, and I just mentioned Mosaic from Farmhouse, the brewery that gave us this beer here. And Mosaic is a hop strand, I believe, that was brewed, or not brewed, bred over the course of like, I want to, if I'm remembering correctly, it was like 12 years or something ridiculous. So how long does it take really to develop a sort of strand of hops that you're happy with, or is it just an ever constantly evolving process?
So any time a new variety of hop is created, and that's typically by the bigger names that are out there, on average, it should take 10 years. And that's because, if you're only growing those, that say you get something developed and now you have 10,000 seeds from the cross that you just did, and that's a low number. You have
Wow.
to grow all of those and kind of wean them out. And there's all sorts of parameters, whether it's growable, does it have good aroma? Is it brewable? Is it harvestable? There's a whole bunch of different tests that it has to pass. Does it have disease resistance? And that takes years to test all those different things. And even so, you can have a hop that's perfect after 2 years, but you need to grow it for a few more years to make sure that its characteristics don't change, because that's another factor. So it could turn into a completely different hop, or it just won't be good anymore. So you're supposed to spend years, although there have been out there that have come up with these varieties that they release in a couple of years and they have a ton of problems. So when you mention varieties like Mosaic or Citra, Amarillo, those are all patented, trademark varieties that only the person that developed that variety or someone that they allowed to grow it with them, they're the only ones allowed to touch it. So, like, I can't grow Mosaic or Citra or any of those because, again, they're the ones that had to put in all that work and time to grow
Yeah.
them.
Yeah, it makes sense.
So, kind of going off of that, what kind of hops are you all growing on the farm?
So we just recently made some changes. We're still kind of debating more, but right now in the ground I have Cascade, which is the majority of our yard is Cascade. I have Zeus, I have Nugget, and we just put in a hop variety called Southern Cross, which is somewhat known. It's actually a New Zealand variety that was recently released, actually by accident, um, and we were able to through our supplier get it, and it's something very different. Has one of the highest oil profiles of all the hops. So we're pretty excited to get it, grow it, and push it.
We also grow Chinook.
Oh, I miss
Nice.
Chinook. That's
Yeah,
my favorite
definitely.
hop, too.
I recognize a few of those names. Definitely Cascade. I wish I could remember some of the beers that I've had with some of these in them. I know
You've
that.
probably had most of the beers. Most of the beers you've had have probably had Cascade or Chinook. A lot of those are the backbone hops
Okay.
typically. Uh, the mosaic, unless it's spelled out that it's brewed only with mosaic or only with citra. A lot of times the brewers will do the first boil with a cascade, with a chinook, to get those flavors in there, and the more high end hops, for lack of a better term, are aroma hops and like the flavor hops that come in at the end.
Yeah. Yeah, I know one that I've had. For some reason, I feel like a lot of the beers that I've been drinking recently are. You said New Zealand, but a lot of them have been advertised as like Australian hops. I don't know if that's very similar or.
Yeah, Galaxy. If you've had anything with Galaxy,
Yeah, Galaxy.
it's like one of the best hops in the world, in my opinion.
Yeah. I know one that I've really been enjoying lately is also, I think it's called Simcoe. It's like a nuttier sort of profile,
Yeah.
I think, is what I usually pick up from it. And I actually was proud of myself the other day. I feel like I'm like painting myself as like a noob or something, but I was just drinking a beer. It was like an IPA or something, and I was like, this kind of tastes like it's got Simcoe like flavor profile in it. And I looked it up, and it actually did have it in there, and I was so proud of myself.
That's
Nice.
hard to do. I still, even that's hard for me sometimes. So
That one just seems like it has a very unique profile like, compared to the more. I mean, maybe it's also because a lot of them that I drink are like the citrusy ones, definitely Citra, Mosaic, things like that.
right.
And so that one, I was like, all right, this is definitely a little bit different. So, but kind of tailoring off of that, have you guys, obviously there's a ton of time that has to go into this stuff, and you guys have been around for a few years now. Are you working on any sort of original hop varieties on your own?
Top secret.
Yeah, I can say I play around with it. Again, and it takes 10 years. So
Yeah.
I'll just say I love hops growing hops as much as I do. When in the wintertime I grow hops in my basement.
Wow.
So that's kind of where I play around with that. So you have to get a hold of male hops. It's all the hops that you get in beer are from females. So I have some male hops and just play around with crossbreeding and see where that goes. So
So
that's kind of
is that the strategy then? Just taking multiple different strands, crossbreeding them, and seeing what kind of happens.
yeah, and I mean, it all comes down to basic biology and studying the pedigree of those varieties. You don't want them to be closely related. I actually have a pedigree chart that I go by, when crossing them because you want to make sure like the parentage isn't similar, um, or your hops aren't going to be right because it's inbreeding. So
Wow.
same thing applies with plants, even believe it or not. So that's it's all something to play around with, and it may turn to nothing, but if anything, it's cool because I can end up with hop cones that don't exist anywhere else in the world, and they might suck, but it's something fun, and that's just a little enjoyment I get out of it that annoys my wife. So
That's so cool. So is like the fallback then basically like what happens if you get a bad strand? Does it just not grow or?
yeah, I mean it depends. It might grow, but it could be highly susceptible to certain types of hop diseases, in which case is really a no-go because you put that into a yard and it gets diseased, well, it's going to spread it to the rest of your yard. So when you're eliminating varieties that are, your trials that aren't doing well, you literally kill them.
Oh wow.
If it doesn't pass a certain test, it goes away, and you move on to the next one. So
Okay, okay.
And that's kind of how we select the hops for our yard as well.
yeah,
We look at because the Pacific Northwest, like Washington State, Oregon, they grow the majority of the hops in the world, uh, and especially in the U.S. And with that, their climate's a little different than the East Coast. It's so we have to look at the hops that they grow and say, okay, does it make sense for our climate? We look at our climate, we look what grows well here, what doesn't, and so there's certain characteristics we look for and certain characteristics we avoid, and some of that's trial and error. There's some we've had to replace some hops because we're like, oh, this might work, but it doesn't. But what we do is we'll do it in small increments, do 2 or 3 plants, and we have a little test yard. If those don't grow well, we're like, okay, scratch that. And so, we're trying to make the most of the land we have. We're trying to make the most out of it. So if it doesn't grow well, we kind
Yeah.
of move on.
So real quick, one more thing. If it does grow well, how do you can you basically just go off of a sense of smell or taste of the plant itself to know if it's going to taste good in as a brew basically?
generally, yeah. You can follow the basic characteristics that a hop is expected to have. Well, like Cascade, which is your citrus, but it's more of a grapefruit citrus. Um, yeah, Chinook that's got its classic pine characteristics and more grapefruit. Generally, the hops, no matter where you grow them, are going to contain those characteristics. But based on where you grow them, kind of like grapes, you get into the term called terroir, which is a geographical influence or climate influence on like a vegetable or whether it be hops or grapes, whatever. So they're going to be slightly different, but not really in a bad way. My Cascade are going to taste completely different than the Cascade grown up in the Yakima Valley. So, that's where it's kind of interesting. But um, generally, we're not getting any bad aromas or anything like that we've seen so far, unless it's a variety that's known to have some strange aromas.
Got it. Okay.
That's super cool. So, how long does it take for an actual hop plant, or hopefully I'm using the correct terminology, to actually mature enough for you to tell? Like, I mean, obviously the year's only so long, and being here on the East Coast of the United States, maybe not the coast for you guys, but the weather is not as nice as other parts of the world all year round. So, how much time do you really have each year to kind of grow, and then how many harvests can you even get out of a single year?
So for us, it's, I'll, I can elaborate on that then, but it's one harvest every year. Um, and hops are one of the fastest growing plants in the world. So, and as a plant that comes back every year, they'll break dormancy coming out of winter as early as February. I had shoots coming
Wow.
out in February this year. I mean, we had a really warm winter, and you don't want them to grow at that point. You don't want them to start growing until halfway, three quarters of the way through May. So I'll put it this way: we'll cut them back until that point, and we'll say May 20th, we let them start growing, and we train them. Say they grow 20 feet tall. So from May 20th, they'll be maybe 6 inches to a foot, and by the end of June, they'll be 20 feet tall.
What? Oh
So,
my gosh, that's
so
crazy.
those hops will grow a foot or more a day. I've had a couple that have grown almost 2 feet in a day,
That's mind blowing.
Wow.
and that's just through maturity. I mean, this was their third year, and certain spots of the yard might get a little more nitrogen or have a little better soil. But I've actually measured, and they do. You can almost watch them grow.
So, everybody's heard about like Monsanto, right? And everything that happened with that. And it sounds like from what you're saying is you might not have to replant. So, do you have to replant every year, or is it just you plant it once and then it just grows back every year?
Yep, and they get bigger and bigger. So when you plant them, they're a little plug in the ground about this big. And I can tell you that I just dug up some that were going well on their third year, and that little plug now weighs about 80 pounds worth of
Oh,
just roots. I can't even make my arms big around enough. I can tell you that about five of them took up the entire bed of a pickup truck. So
wow.
they get huge and actually too big sometimes. You have to trim them back, but yeah, they're extremely vigorous
It,
growers. I mean, they're considered a weed technically.
Okay.
Wow. Yeah,
it's
and you kind of
funny if you buy hops like live hops online, they sell them by the gallon, not by the plant. It's by the gallon because of the roots. So it's like, okay, I'm going to get gallons of this if you're going to buy an actual fully grown plant. And you want to look up something interesting. Look how expensive mature hop plants are.
man, that's crazy.
So,
Wow.
so did you buy all mature hop plants, or did you started from seed and did it yourself, or from plug, I
They're
guess?
all baby plants from an actual hop plant supply company, and they're first year plants that they just get from cuttings that they propagate from that variety. Um, so yeah, they're first year little baby plants, and you put them in the spring or even the fall, late summer, like we just did. Um, and then they'll just keep growing and develop. And you'll lose some. You always have to replace some, and that's typical. Um, we had a warm winter, and some hops require dormancy, so they don't get a proper dormancy. You might get some that die off.
Right.
Got it.
And you kind of touched on this earlier too, that different strands and things are more resistant to disease. What are some of the like unexpected challenges or even expected challenges? You kind of already touched on that you have to be prepared for when you're growing hops.
So yeah, I mean it's different and it's unique to every region or wherever you are in the world growing hops, just based on what kind of pests and what kind of disease, what your weather is like. The Northeast comes with its unique challenges. The Pacific Northwest comes with its unique challenges. For us here, it seems like downy mildew, which really occurs everywhere. It's really like the bane of growing hops. Your biggest, the worst thing that can happen to you is downy mildew. Um, and that's a thing here, but certain varieties are more resistant than others. So a lot of it is trial and error, and we look into the stats and what the hop is about. You don't want to get downy mildew in your yard, and it's something you have to battle. And then for us, I mean, everybody has that. The one thing that we have, the Pacific Northwest doesn't, is Japanese beetles, but we deal with them too. And then now the spotted lanternfly is becoming a big thing. A lot of warnings about that. That's a newer bug in this area. We don't have them on our farm yet. They're within 20 miles of here. So
So I guess kind of sticking with the idea of like dealing with hardship and whatnot, do you have any harsh regulations or barriers to entry that you've had to deal with?
I don't think so. I think it's just, you know, putting in a hop yard, that's enough of a barrier of entry itself. You know, it's not like we go and grow, dig some holes and put some plants in. You're putting telephone pole sized logs into your yard. Then you're running steel cable through it, planting
over a
hundreds of,
mile of cable per acre, up to 2 miles of cable.
and you're running that. You're getting that all set up, and then hops are fickle plants. They're hard to deal with sometimes. Sometimes it's like, I don't know what's going to happen with these. They're not growing. And then you look overnight, they explode. Also weeds. Weeds are terrible to deal with. They just like, it's fine. Everything looks great. The field looks beautiful. And then it rains, that first big rain, Andrew will go outside and there's just weeds everywhere. So now it's time to go pull weeds and deal with all that. But, it's a challenging thing. And I don't know, Andrew, the challenges better than me, but
Yeah, and like Victor mentioned, the weeds and everything. That's just a standard thing for hop farmers to deal with, and everybody kind of has their own way. Um, we like to do it as natural as we possibly can, but weeds are weeds, and over any farmer can tell you, your field will have something referred to as a seed bank. And your goal over the years is to get your seed bank, which is of all your weeds that have reproduced and drop seeds in your yard. You need to get that down. And that takes years to do that. It's just a lot of farming practice and learning new techniques. Again, I had never farmed before we did this. So, it's a lot of learning. It's a big struggle for everybody in this area. So we kind of all share ideas on how to deal with the weeds
Wow.
and
Okay.
in those sort of situations.
Yeah, sounds pretty in depth, you know. I brought up Monsanto earlier because of the whole Roundup thing. Do you use Roundup at all, or is it kind of just going out there and
No,
tilling them up? Or
no, that's in the hop growing community, it is used. You know, within legality. I mean, they're using it, I guess, what would be considered the proper way. Um, you know, there's things that we have to use occasionally, but I will not ever use Roundup on my hop farm. I'm a strong believer in not using it because it does leach into your soil and it does sit there, and ultimately it does end up anything that you eat that has Roundup or glyphosate, which is the actual chemical in it. It's probably in. There's traces amount of that in most of the beer that you drink. Um, so no, I'm not a believer in it. It scares me just even trying to use it. They'll use it for weeds, but it'll harm your plants, and I'm not risking hurting plants. Use the right farming practices. It's not necessary.
we
makes
do a lot
sense.
of we do a lot of Andrew will flame weed, so he'll go through with a torch and burn back the weeds, and that'll kill them. We also do a lot of hilling, where he'll take the tractor through, and it kicks dirt up onto the rows and will smother the weeds, but the hops are growing out, so they're fine at that
It's
point. So
referred, yeah, it's referred to as hilling. It's a technique that the Germans have used for centuries. Um, and it's been tough here because of the type of soil we have. So we just kind of work on the soil. I have some methods for that. We have a lot of clay, and clay is really hard to move around because it's so dense and it's heavy. But we're able to improve that with organic matter, and I could go on for days about that. But the hilling worked really well this year, and it gives your rows of plants a nice mound. They retain a little more moisture, but not too much. And we saw a substantial increase in just in how well our plants grew doing that. So
yeah,
that's something we're still exploring. But yeah, you get weeds and you literally just smother them with more soil, and you do that continuously throughout the growing season. And you don't need any chemicals to do that, and it's good for your soil.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely like the sounds of that a lot better than chemicals in my beer.
Right.
Yeah, and it's an unfortunate part of of the hop world.
Yeah.
A lot
farming
better.
in general.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm not one saying you have to be organic. Um, I but there's ways to avoid, using chemicals if possible.
Right.
Now it's hard to get rid of certain types of bugs and stuff like that, but it is what it is.
Right. So are you guys, we've been following you guys on Instagram for a little while now and looking into you guys, and I love seeing the big giant bags of hops. Are you guys distributing primarily to local breweries or to home brewers, or how does that work?
So we're a combination, right? When we started the hop farm, Andrew's a big home brewer. He loves the home brew. Doesn't have as much time as he used to do it, but he loves to home brew. And we were looking at it and kind of saying, all right, the breweries have all the access to all the fresh hops, all the best hops the breweries get, and then home brewers have to order them online, or they have to go to the homebrew store, and the homebrew store has to, even the homebrew store has to kind of fight their way into getting these packages that from giant hop farms where you don't know, right, how fresh the hops are. So we thought, all right, why don't we also serve as home brewers and say, all right, these hops were packaged from this harvest, they're fresh, they're from your backyard, and you can get that. So we offer wet hops, so the whole cone,
Yeah.
which 99% of beers are not brewed with, they're brewed with pellets. um, but during harvest, we offer the whole cones. Very limited window though. When we pick it, you have to go home and brew with it. If you let it sit for a day, it's done. They're no good
Wow.
anymore. Um, so it takes a lot of coordination. It's if we were to sell you some wet hops, you and I would be going back and forth every week. All right, I think the hops are coming this time, and you'd say okay, and then the next week I say maybe next week, or maybe now it's moving up because they're plants. I don't have a day where it's like, oh yeah, they're ready. It's like they'll probably be ready this day, and
It,
so
it was it was tough this year because we had very little rain. We were on borderline of drought going into harvest, so it was really tough. Since they got drier because of the lack of water, it seemed like they'd be ready, and then it would rain. It was like, no, they're not quite ready. And then we did get like a couple rain showers here leading into harvest, and it kind of fixed everything. But um, yeah, it was. I mean, we irrigate, but you still need a good rain at least every once in a while. And we went a good month, 5 weeks without any rain. So
yeah. But yeah, so we do a lot of homebrew work, and also breweries. That's kind of, it's a lot more, it's a lot of fun to sell to a brewery because we're craft beer fans, like you're craft beer fans. We get to peel back the curtain though. We
Yeah.
get to go back and hand the big bag of wet hops to the brewery, or I get to be on the phone with brewers talking about the styles they're brewing. And a lot of times I'm on the phone with them and they're like, oh, I have a great idea. We can do this, this, or this. So to me, that's exciting because I love craft beer. I'm not a brewer, but I get to be a part of it. Um, and we get to taste it more readily, and it gets to spread that way.
Have you guys considered kind of leveraging the hop farm to get into brewing, or is that too much to put on the plate?
We there's definitely been some talks. We have some ideas going. We have some space to do something really small in there, but as of right now, that's kind of just a work in progress.
Nice.
Makes sense.
Well, we'll be keeping our eyes open for sure.
Yeah, yeah.
So I guess, I mean, like, I feel like we could sit here and talk about this all day because I'm thoroughly enjoying learning more about the hops. But coming off of that last piece there, how can people find you guys, and where can they go to get some wet hops or pellets of their own from your farm?
So we're very active on Instagram, which is lionbines_hop farm. If you're watching the live stream, you'll see my name that's there. But yeah, just Google Lion Bines. There's not many things named Lion Bines, so we're usually the first hit. We have a website, lionbineshops.com. hops.com. You can go learn more about us. Reach out if you're a hop farm and you're looking to have your hops processed. You can shoot us an email on there. Our web store will be online soon, so you can buy some swag, buy some hops, and yeah, we're on Facebook, Instagram, and yeah, we're very responsive.
Awesome. I can attest to that, chatting back and forth with you guys. So, yeah, I mean, again, I just want to thank you guys for coming on with us. Fortunately, we get to hang out with you guys a little bit longer. We're going to talk about some UFC, which I know we're all excited about. Was happy to hear you guys are fight fans as well. So I think we're going to transition into that. But just again, once again, guys, thank you guys so much for coming on and schooling us a little bit on hops. I definitely want to keep this conversation going and keep educating ourselves and our audience around all this stuff. So thank you guys for sharing that knowledge with us. But Reese, I think it's about time we transition to some UFC, sir. What do you think?
Yeah, man, let's do it. We're going to transition now.